Hello and welcome to another stream. Today we're gonna talk about study tips. My name is Chris. As I've already told you in the introduction of this stream, today we're gonna talk about study tips and techniques for the English A-level exam, oral exam of course. In this case, it's 3 months before the oral exam. Whoa. Normally, of course, you should have already started acquiring different skills, acquiring different knowledge to all the different topics. But now and today, we're gonna focus on study tips and different techniques you can develop that help you basically to pass the oral exam or to make studying a more efficient topic. Or there are different things we're gonna have a look at today. At first, we're gonna have a look at the overview of the oral A-level assessment criteria, which are quite important, of course, since if you don't know how you are assessed in the exam, it's a bit difficult to know what's really going on in the exam and to know what you have to focus on. Then we're gonna talk about tips for creating an effective study plan. Study plans are really important. I like to do study plans. They help me to structure my my topics and the hours I put in. Yes, and then we're gonna talk about strategies for improving vocabulary, grammar, speaking skills, and strategies for revising content, including topic vocabulary. Okay, so the overview of the assessment criteria. Basically, the assessment criteria there are different assessment criteria, and they all have a scale which goes from 1 to 5. In this case, we're gonna have a look at them, but I'm first gonna outline which categories there are. First, it is how you communicate, how you interact with the examiner. So, for example, are you able to lead the conversation all by yourself, or do you need support from the examiner, or is it something that it's between those two things? So just a little help, or almost no help. It's a bit difficult, of course, to assess it, but there are the scales that go from 1 to 5 are written away so that it's quite clear cut. Then there is the category of vocabulary and mode of expression. So which vocabulary you use. Is it more advanced vocabulary? Is it vocabulary that is below the level you should be, or maybe it is above the level? Also possible, of course. Content, so is it just a random things or knowledge you present there, or is it a real valid content? Then, of course, grammar, very important, and pronunciation and intonation, also important. I guess that's one of the most difficult things to improve on, pronunciation and intonation. especially pronunciation, intonation is something you can acquire more easily, I guess. Pronunciation, there it goes, is a bit more difficult, but if you work on it every day, then it will get better, of course. It's almost impossible to be native like in pronunciation, but of course you should try to be as close as your level is, basically, in this case, not as a native speaker. That's not the aim here, but you should have well, you should know how to pronounce the vocabulary you're using, and in this case depends on the level, of course. So now we're gonna have a look at those scales and assessment criteria. In this case it's written in German. So there are different topics, culture, education, blah blah blah, but now here are the criteria, Beurteilungsschema, which the first one is all about communication, and the first number here labels the best, and 5 is the worst, actually. And yeah, in this case there is Ausdruck und Wortschatz, so almost the same. In this case you can if you have access to this document, or if the lecturer gave you this document, you can easily be assessed by someone else, maybe that has some knowledge of the language. Of course it should be a bit higher, and maybe you know somebody that studies English as me. They can help you there. And yeah, in this case there are all the others, and for example, if we have a more detailed look into the criteria of intonation and pronunciation, for example, at level 3 you're basically, you do try to prevent mistakes, but you can only prevent them if you're fully prevent them if you if the examiner tells you so, that you made an error or a mistake here. In this case we continue. Yes, okay, that's all about basically the criteria. Now we're gonna have a look at the study plan and how to create an effective study plan. At first of all, you might ask yourself, why do I need a study plan? Yes, I think it really helps you to structure your topics, the amounts of topics you have to learn, and it helps you to achieve your goal faster, to stay focused, to plan your day, which normally you're not supposed to. Maybe you have to, but normally you don't study the whole day, And therefore it's good to keep also to keep an overview and to plan your day basically. So when you have certain study times, or yeah, if you have a certain time at the day where you best acquire knowledge or acquire new information, you should find out and then note it down to your study plan. So in this case, of course, how can we then create an effective study plan? Important is that you should set yourself short and long-term goals. So short-term goals might be subtopics, or maybe an amount of vocabulary or phrases. And long-term goals, of course, goals, of course, can be, for example, 4 chapters or topics in 1.5 weeks. So basically, how you can create the study plan is that you create a list of all the topics you have to focus on at first, and then think about the most important aspects of each topic, and then set the priorities on each topic. Schedule your study time, we already had it. And also think about your leisure activities. So that's goes hand in hand with plan your day. Study plan, basically you can structure it as a table in Excel. You can just write it down. 8:30 to 12 I'm gonna study this topic on Monday, the other topic on Tuesday, and so on. And also think about that you have breaks, drink enough water or tea or coffee, and yeah, try to get some fresh air in breaks in between, so which also helps you to stay focused. Now we're going to talk about strategies of how to improve your vocabulary. And basically the first thing I always mention, or often mention, is that if you stumble upon a new word, write it down. Don't only look it up, or even worse, just ignore it. Type it in your phone, write it on a sheet of paper, or write it on your hand, or I don't know, in your face. It doesn't matter. Somehow you can remember it or reread it, and then maybe translate it later if you're just watching a movie and it's not that essential for the plot. Highlight the words in a text. So if you're reading an article, for example, you don't know the word, and you can't guess it with context clues or so on, highlight it, translate it, maybe find a synonym, an English synonym that helps you get to know and remember the word. Read a lot, of course, goes hand in hand with improving vocabulary, I think. And watch movies. In this case, it's useful to watch it with subtitles so you can read the spelling of the words, and carefully listen to song lyrics. I think that helped me a lot. If you're into music, try it out. Of course, sometimes the meaning isn't that accurate as in non-artistic music or non-artistic fields, but yeah, I think you get the idea. Grammar can also be improved by reading a lot and looking up things you don't know. There are a lot of books out there, good books and also bad books, of course. Good books and bad books sounds a bit strange, but yeah. There are some books that help you acquire good grammar knowledge and good grammar skills, but there is of course also a thing called the internet or apps you can use. There are a lot of them where you can train your grammar frequently. And try to write an article at least once a week, which is of course not obligatory, but it helps you to use your grammar, since if you just know the grammar rules and you can't apply them, it doesn't make any sense, since you have to apply them in the oral exam. Of course, you don't have to write that much in the oral exam, but if you can apply rules and vocabulary in the different skills or fields, writing, reading not that much, but speaking, of course, then it is really helpful for your supporting. Use the language which of course is the thing of language application. Try to maybe find a native speaker or a person where you can just talk English to, or it doesn't even have to be a native speaker. It's just about to use the language with your friends. Maybe they want to get better in English, and then just focus on using the language. You should, or you can, listen to podcasts, which is quite comfortable. I think you can listen to podcasts everywhere. If you have a mobile phone or something similar, or a tablet or anything, there are apps like Spotify or iTunes Music. We are not sponsored, by the way, by any of them. Then, of course, TV, movies, series, all the stuff you find out there in the new world. And exchange with your classmates, which I've already mentioned, that exchanging with somebody helps you improve your grammar. The same goes with speaking skills. We already talked about it with pronunciation, intonation. It's really something you have to practice by yourself with another guy or girl. In this case, study buddies are really helpful. Try to use the language, in this case English, as often as possible. Try to think in English, and maybe visit an English speaking country and stay there just for a time, for a few weeks, or try to integrate in this country you're in. And there are some beautiful places. There's not just the US and England. You can also go to Australia or South Africa or India. and try to find a native with already talked about it and maybe exchange with him or her on a weekly basis. That would be the ideal, I guess, since a native speaker can also correct you if you're making mistakes and practice your pronunciation. Of course, this can be done by online dictionaries or movie series podcasts, but also having certain knowledge in how to pronounce a P or a V or something. That's yeah, can be looked up on the internet or in any book about linguistics, which is the special field of Maria. Yes, and now we're gonna talk about revising content. Do we have any comments, by the way?
No, we don't.
Okay. So, including topic vocabulary, of course. Summarize your topic with the help of mind maps, bullet points, and short written summaries. If you want to have a detailed look in those three things, not just the first two, I think. There is a stream I did about mind maps and bullet points, which goes into more detail how to create them and what they are. I think my favorite are mind maps, but yeah, I think it's the more creative way, I think, to approach summary. But of course you can just write short summaries, and if you write, it's really good to process all your knowledge. So writing is just a blessing if you do so. Practice the topics, of course, and present them to a friend or family or girlfriend, whatever. You need to practice, revise the content as often as possible, of course, since revision makes you better and makes you more can't find a word now. And yeah, also important is to highlight the vocabulary you don't know, which is also a thing we already talked about, of course. Work with a vocabulary list helped me a lot. Work with index cards is also an awesome thing. Of course, it really needs time to create them. There's sometimes they're not, it's a really time consuming process, but yeah, it really helped me. So maybe you haven't found out how to properly study now, but try different things. If you don't have that much time, they still help, since you revise the topic by writing it down and then you're revising the topic anyway, because you're using the super efficient index cards you created. Then record all the vocabulary to your phone is also another thing you can do, which helps you to have some sort of a list. And practice with a vocabulary app, of course, is also very helpful. So there are different kinds out there. I don't know the names, but just have to type in vocabulary app, and then yeah, you will find an app that is suitable for your needs or to your needs. And with this, I'd like to thank you for watching this stream today. I guess no no comments, unfortunately. If you have questions, do not hesitate to ask us. We try to get back to the question as soon as possible. With that being said, I'd like to say goodbye and, of course, have a nice evening